The historic election in Myanmar, you're listening to a special profile of Aung San Suu Kyi. I'm Mark Coles. She's one of the best-known political figures in the world. A human rights icon, a Nobel laureate, a country's Nelson Mandela, say some.
Smart and very brilliant and very courageous. She is a very brave lady.
Her supporters simply call her the Lady, a woman who's sacrificed family and freedom to try to help her people.
There is a song in Burma now, very popular. It's about her party, that she's going to win, she's going to be the leader of the government, and she will be our president. And that is what people are hoping for.
But not everyone's convinced.
You don't see any intellectual or ideological substance or issues of importance.
On Sunday, the people of Myanmar, formerly Burma, got their say. Millions voting in what's widely regarded to be the country's first free elections in 25 years.
The Burmese opposition leader Aung San Suu Kyi has urged her supporters awaiting the results of yesterday's elections to remain calm, saying it's too early to celebrate.
All the signs are Aung San Suu Kyi's National League for Democracy party has performed well and will win the most seats. Despite a constitution rewritten by the army to prevent her becoming president, the NLD leader now on the verge of realising a long-held dream of freeing her country from authoritarian rule, just like her father did almost 70 years earlier. Her dad was General Aung San, this one of many Burmese songs written in his honour. A nationalist, revolutionary hero, he was his country's de facto leader after the Second World War, the man who in 1947 helped negotiate independence from Britain.
My colleagues and I have come to London in response to the invitation of His Majesty's government in order to discuss the constitutional questions of Burma. The demand of our people is complete independence.
But 6 months later, just 4 weeks after Suu Kyi turned 2, he was dead, assassinated by political rivals. Aung San Suu Kyi left with no real memory of him, other than the one her mother crafted for her, as she admitted on Radio 4's Desert Island Disc programme in 2013.
I don't think it's a real memory. I think this is a memory that has been kept alive artificially by my mother and others who would always remind me that whenever he came back from work, he would pick me up. But I think I can say my father was my first love because I was always told that he loved me best.
A biographer, Justin Wintle.
She was a very powerful figure, Dorkin Chi, and after General Aung San was assassinated, she brought them up very much with an image of the dead father as a sort of sinless, perfect politician and all that stuff, which has influenced Aung San Suu Kyi throughout her life. And I think that she's driven towards realising the kind of Burma, or Myanmar as it is now, that her father had in mind.
At school, children were taught to learn her father's speeches by heart, which set Suu Kyi apart from a very early age, according to her former school friend, Claude Jorzor.
Every girl in our school and every friend in our school always look her up, you see. She is quite smart at that very small age, you see. And so we respect her also because her father image, it's very large in our own eyes. He is a martyr and he is a great leader of our country.
Aung San Suu Kyi was, she says, rather studious.
While we were playing or something like that, she read a lot. She always talk something very big. Sometimes we don't understand even.
After further tragedy, Aung San Suu Kyi's brother drowned when she was 8. She moved to India. Her mother appointed Burmese ambassador there. Suu Kyi sent first to a convent school, then a college run by nuns. Her best friend back then, Malavika Kalaka, recalls a budding playwright.
She has a very quick and clever turn of phrase and an extremely ready wit. And that's what came into being, I think, while she was in college, and she wrote this spoof on Antony and Cleopatra.
She wrote a spoof on Antony and Cleopatra?
yes, and we acted it out, can you imagine? And in those days, no boys were allowed to come and act with us, so we all played the role, and I think she was Mark Antony.
After that, the wannabe Roman general was off to Oxford, to the all-girls St Hugh's, to study philosophy, politics and economics, just as the swinging 60s were kicking off.
Everybody was just dazzled by liberation, sexual liberation, the excitement of being a hippie.
Anne Pasternak-Slater befriended Aung San Suu Kyi from day one. She says she stood out like a sore thumb.
Sue was a sort of contrast to all that because she was beautiful, straight-backed and upright in every sort of way, so that she was constantly shocked by the kind of laxness of the world that she was in.
Sex, drugs and rock and roll weren't really Aung San Suu Kyi's thing, though she did try, well, sort of.
She arranged for 2 female friends to go with her to the ladies' loos in the bottom of the Bodleian Library. And there she took with her a small sort of a mini bottle of brandy or white wine or something and drank it in the loos with these friends. And then, that was it. She'd done it and she never wanted to drink again. We would have these conversations, and I can remember one when some rather more sexually liberated friend of mine said to her, "But Sue, don't you want to have a boyfriend too?" And she said, "No, I'll never go to bed with anybody except my husband. And now I just go to bed and hug my pillow." But, that was characteristic of her absolutely sort of firm moral principles.
Then, in 1972, after turning him down several times, she married the English historian and academic Michael Arris. The pair had 2 sons, so Suu Kyi warned him right from the start that if her country ever needed her, she would have to go.
She predicted what would happen to us as a couple 20 years ago, on the eve of our marriage.
This is him speaking in the early 1990s, 3 years after Aung San Suu Kyi returned to Burma to look after her mother who'd had a stroke.
And it wasn't a flash of intuition or insight. It was a knowledge that she would have to render service to her people at some time.
Her arrival coincided with the country's 1988 pro-democracy uprising, followed by a brutal military clampdown, and Aung San Suu Kyi found herself right in the thick of it.
The latest round of protests began 3 days ago when angry crowds led by students took to the streets.
The BBC's Chris Gunnis, now a UN relief agency spokesman, was reporting undercover from Rangoon back then.
People were being beheaded, there were crowds everywhere, there were people being let out of prison. Burma was descending very rapidly into complete anarchy. And along suddenly came Aung San Suu Kyi, gave this speech. Everyone knew her because, of course, her father was one of the founding fathers of modern Burma. And so she immediately commanded this respect.
There were so many people, and I had to shout. And even then, I don't think many could hear me.
How much was that a turning point for her, but also the country?
I think it was absolutely pivotal in her life. For her, there was no return. And for the country, of course, it was absolutely the moment when the leader, the woman who was going to be the Nelson Mandela of Burma, found herself there with this role very publicly defined. And the public definition of that role made it absolutely impossible for her ever to walk away from it.
Appalled by the manner in which the army crushed the protests, Suu Kyi founded the National League for Democracy and started travelling the country rallying support against the military junta. She recruited a former military man, U Win Tain, as her security advisor. Wherever they went, he says, crowds flocked to hear her speak.
People are attracted to her. Whenever she would like to visit someplace, I do survey first before 1 week or 10 days ahead. So when I informed the local people that she is becoming, the young and old were shouting with joy and jumping. So that kind of response you cannot have with any other people in our country. So her name as well as her reputation, her charisma is unmatched by anybody in our country.
Another key figure, another ex-military man turned democracy activist, was the former Commander-in-Chief of the Burmese Armed Forces, General Tin Oo. He was appointed party chairman, and speaking to us from his home in Yangon, now aged 88, he's in no doubt it was Aung San Suu Kyi's personal charisma that helped build crucial NLD support at the end of the 1980s.
She's so very much smart and very brilliant and very honest and very courageous, not only physically, but also morally. She is a very brave lady and full of courage for passing through any struggle to achieve our objectives.
When elections were held in 1990, the National League for Democracy triumphed, winning convincingly, only for the military to annul the vote and start rounding up NLD activists and leaders, including Aung San Suu Kyi, who was held under house arrest and denied contact with the outside world for 15 of the next 21 years. In her isolation, turning to music to help her cope, as she recalled when interviewed on Desert Island Discs.
This is Pachelbel's Canon. It reminds me of my days under house arrest when I played it very often on the piano. I found it very soothing, and as I played the piano very badly, it was a change for me to be able to play something not too badly.
A former security advisor, U Win Tain, who was detained for 2 decades, says Suu Kyi coped much better than many of her colleagues.
During our days in the prison, well, despite of our suffering, despite of our depression sometimes, after so many ups and downs, many of our colleagues lost their faith in their political objectives, or some lost their health and some lost their family. So also Aung San Suu Kyi was much more stronger than myself. She is determined and always prepared to follow her political objective. Sometimes she was depressed, but whenever she felt a depression, she turned to music or religion.
A number of NLD members were arrested under the military regime, and they were given long prison sentences.
BBC Burmese editor Tinda Sui.
The prison condition in those days were not very good. They could not get any reading material, and also some were sent to very far away prisons, so it was difficult for the family to make prison visits. Some were tortured, and some of the leading members died in prison. So a lot of people, NLD members, suffer from it.
An international campaign was launched to try to put pressure on the Burmese government to free Aung San Suu Kyi. In 1991, she was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, house arrest turning her into a household name. Her biographer, Justin Wintle.
Well, it turned her into an absolute icon. But it turned her into an icon with a lot of outside help. I mean, she was fast-tracked to the Nobel Peace Prize, for example. So you could say it was ineffectual in the sense of buffering her, but effectual in the sense that it held on to power.
But along the way, she also lost her family. Unwilling to leave Burma for fear the military wouldn't allow her to return, she ended up separated from her sons, and in 1999 denied a visa to visit her. Her husband, Michael, died from cancer. She hadn't seen him for 4 years. U Win Tain again.
Her husband died, and she had neglected the fate of her 2 sons. As a mother, she felt greatly about the abandonment of her children.
Her critics have in the past rounded on her for not putting her family first, but BBC Burmese editor Tinda Sui says it wasn't straightforward. Behind the scenes, she insists Aung San Suu Kyi was doing her utmost to check on her son's well-being.
It was very hard on the children. And I'm sure Aung San Suu Kyi, although she never admitted, we had some of the conversation we had with her aides, that how she was so worried about her children. Sometimes we got this information that she wanted to find out how the children, how the boys were doing. And she tried to contact the boys through some of my colleagues who happened to be together with the younger son in Bangkok at that time. So she tried to call him. Not she herself, but her aide tried to contact my colleague to find out how to get hold of her son. So it shows that, as a mother, she must have felt it, that she couldn't fulfill the role of mother, as she would like to be.
Then, after a temporary release in the early noughties, in 2003, she almost lost her own life. Justin Wintle.
She was campaigning in the north of the country, and there was a long convoy which came under fire from people who were obviously under the instructions of one of the army generals, and quite a few people were killed in that. And then there were shots fired at her car, certainly, but they were able to drive off. But then she was arrested, and it was a fairly nightmarish episode.
General Tin Oo had been in the convoy with her when it was attacked. It said he urged her to drive on to flee the scene, but Suu Kyi insisted on staying to help those injured. Not in her nature to run or seek revenge, he says.
She has the mind of no retribution, no revenge. She is still preparing to work very peacefully. Her policy is a peaceful policy.
She survived the attack, but was put under house arrest again, this time for her own protection, according to the military. She was detained in her own home for a further 7 years, until, in November 2010,
Burma's pro-democracy leader Aung San Suu Kyi has been released.
She was finally freed and allowed to start a more conventional political career. Tinda Sui.
The scene in Burma, I was there in 2011, the first time after 22 years I was allowed back. And then the people were less optimistic about the future. They were still very much wary of intelligence agents looking, watching over them. They still feel quite worried about whether they were saying the right thing. Then I went back in 2012 after Aung San Suu Kyi became a member of parliament, and the vibe in the country has changed. The people were so positive. They were talking openly about the future, and they were very hopeful.
In fact, she says, even though it was then more than 3 years away, Aung San Suu Kyi immediately started preparing for Sunday's election.
She really prepared for this 2015 election, and it shows so well in the last 2 months when she started campaigning, how well organized her campaigns are. And she gave the right message to the people, and also selection of candidates for parliamentary candidates she chose is so different from what people were expecting. A lot of young candidates in her party now, and they all are winning, according to the earlier reports from the country, they all are winning the seats they're contesting for.
Though it's not all been plain sailing, she's made some political decisions of late that have raised eyebrows.
She is not, what she has been made out to be, which is this revolutionary icon.
Dr. Mounzani is a Burmese activist and academic living in the UK. He says her party's decision not to field any Muslim candidates this weekend, her country is predominantly Buddhist, as well as a perceived strategic indifference to the plight of her country's oppressed Rohingya minority, means her human rights credibility has taken a knock.
She has revealed herself as just like any other politician who is pursuing just her own personal ambitions and power in the name of democratization.
Justin Wintle.
She's lost an awful lot of street cred internationally. Within the country, her popularity has not been affected by that at all, because she identifies herself very much first and foremost with the Burman people. She's very much her father's daughter, and her father strove to unite all the ethnic minorities within Burma, but not the Muslims. I mean, he was regardless of them. And all she said so far is that she sympathises with their plight. Now, from the international perspective, that is a very weak response from somebody who has the Nobel Peace Prize and who should be standing up for human rights.
The BBC's Tinda Sui.
The population of Rohingya is, we reckon, about 1 million, and they can't vote. They are stateless people. I think because they can't vote, there's no point campaigning in that area. Once she gets into power, then she can deal with it. I think that's what she's planned to do. But there are criticism about her as well. She's pretty dictatorial. She's the one who makes a decision. We don't know how true these rumors are, but even members of NLD, they were not particularly happy with the way she manages the party.
The Nobel Peace Prize brotherhood, or sisterhood as it is also now, you've got even the Dalai Lama, and this is again going back to the Rohingya, even he has expressed frustration with her. Desmond Tutu equally has expressed grave disappointment at her inability to stridently stand up for the human rights of these beleaguered people. What I have understood about her is that she has a patrician mindset, which I think not everybody is prepared to accept. I mean, they just see her as this very beautiful icon of people's rights and the Burmese people, but she's got a patrician mindset. I mean, if you're looking for a Burmese aristocracy, she's it. And the way that she conducts herself, the way that she comports herself, she's a lady. I mean, she's always called a lady, and there's a certain irony in that. I mean, she behaves in the most ladylike fashion.
But Maunzani contends the woman they call the lady has actually lost the support of some who initially sided with her.
Since she has been released from, her last house arrest back in 2010, she has consistently denied that she stood for human rights or any other liberal principle. She runs the party as the most difficult autocrat. That she has turned her back on the farmers, on the workers, on the students who are all protesting, and she has actually been a major disappointment for many of the dissidents, including myself, who had stood with her and supported her in the last 27 years.
On a personal level, her release allowed her to resume her life as a mother. Her youngest son, Kim, came to visit her for the first time in a decade after she was freed. She delivered 2 BBC Wreath lectures and, more importantly, got to travel outside Myanmar for the first time in 2 decades, visiting the Swiss Parliament and collecting her 1991 Nobel Peace Prize in Oslo, using her speech to call for further reform back home.
Those who have not yet been freed, those who have not yet been given access to the benefits of justice in my country number much more than one. Please remember them and do whatever is possible to effect their earliest unconditional release.
On a trip to Britain in June 2012, Aung San Suu Kyi took time out to visit the BBC World Service to tell staff how much she had relied on their radio programmes during years of house arrest. Suu Kyi holding a private meeting with members of the Burmese service. Tinda Swee was there.
It was very exciting, not just for the Burmese service, but the whole world service. They were so excited. And of course, we got to keep this quite confidential. And even people, colleagues sitting in the same zone as Burmese service, they were really annoyed that they were not being told about it. But it was such a joyful occasion to see her here. We've been reporting about her and about Burma for decades. And suddenly she's here in this building, and the building was brand new, and she was the first famous person to visit this building. And she was also she was very warm to BBC, and she was very grateful to not just the Burmese service, but the whole BBC for covering the situation in Burma relentlessly and so comprehensively.
You gave her a present, I think. The Burmese service gave her a present.
I did give her a present. That was an interview with her husband, Dr. Michael Aris. And it was a time, he said, how he worried about her when previously her neighbors could hear her playing piano. So they knew that she was there in the house. And suddenly her piano was, needed some tuning, so she couldn't play. So there's no indication whether she was in the house or whether she was still all right or not. So Michael expressed in the interview that her concern and how much he was troubled by this.
On that same visit to the UK, Aung San Suu Kyi was also reunited with her old Oxford University friend, Anne Pasternak-Slater.
She picked me out of a crowd at a party in St. Hugh's. I thought she wouldn't recognise me. And the wrong man with a beard was standing by me. She knew what my husband looked like. And she looked at him very puzzled and then to me and said, "Anne!" And it was so wonderful to feel that the whole thing, all those years, 40 years, hadn't made a moment's difference.
Others think she has changed, and inevitably so, according to her Indian school friend Malavika Kalaka.
She's not one of us anymore, Mark. She's a politician. There is an aura about her. It's nothing that's gone. I think there's an accretion of different kinds of things that have happened to her. She's become public persona. She's become an international figure. Maybe we are also in awe of her. Her old friends are also in awe of her.
So at 70, will Aung San Suu Kyi finally get her chance to lead her country, to emulate her father and create a dynasty of sorts? The Constitution says no. It currently prohibits anyone with foreign children from becoming president. Her 2 sons have British citizenship. But defiant as ever, last week Aung San Suu Kyi announced that if her party wins this election, she'll act above the president. "I have already made plans," she said. BBC Burmese editor Tinda Sui is sure she has.
If she can form a government, then she definitely will be running that government. She doesn't have to be the president, but she can nominate somebody from her party to be the president, and she can still be the power behind the throne.
Justin Wintle thinks even if she does win, and wins big, there'll still be problems ahead.
She's been a focal point, I think, for the Burmese people, giving them hope and all those things. Her party, the NLD, I think that where she's failed is to bring on a younger leadership within the party. If you ask what the party stands for, it stands for her. The manifesto says nothing about the economy, for example. So it's very, very much, which is rather traditional Burmese. I mean, particularly under British rule, parties came and went, and they were always sort of bundled around their leaders, and she's done that, I think. Bear in mind that she is 70 now. She's not in the best of health, and I think that even were the Constitution to be changed to allow her to become, president, I think it would be an enormous strain on her.
But Christopher Gunnis, who was there right at the start, back in Rangoon in 1988 when she first stepped up to the plate, is convinced this is an historic moment, that after decades of military rule, it's about to come full circle. Aung San Suu Kyi, he says, will lead her country.
I have little doubt that the historic role that Aung San Suu Kyi has in store for her will be fulfilled. I have no doubt somehow that she will lead Burma to its second independence.